started.
I have no other unless, Mayor, you have anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Harper, and appreciate all your good work here. We're ready to move on to the next agenda item. Bear with me. All right. Sorry, my notes are not in the right order. They are in the opposite order. So the next item on the agenda is item number 5, which we switched, which is now the City of West Haven, and we have a subcommittee update in the materials. From when we met, we did a lot of discussion around, of course, the 5-year plan. But
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but are we not approving the 5-year plan today?
No, that's going to subcommittee. Sorry, Mayor.
My apologies. No, sorry for interrupting. Thank you.
Nope, you're fine. We're going to flesh out in detail the 5-year plan.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can talk on the phone if I have to.
Okay. City of West Haven, I believe we have them with us now already. Julian, I thought I saw that the mayor was here.
That's correct, Kim. We're here.
Yes, they're on the line.
Yes, we're here.
Okay. So, in addition to what's in here for the update, the first item that we really want to discuss is going to be the review of the labor contract. So the Communication Workers of America labor contract, which is managers for numerous departments. It totals about 36 employees that are represented. The previous contract was not, had expired in June of 2017. And the city and the union recently negotiated a successor contract that would go through June of 2024. MARB has the authority to approve, reject the contract, or not take any action at all. Based on the statutory timeline, the MARB would have until June the 4th to take action on this contract if we so choose. Cover memo is included in the packet today with the tentative agreement outlining the provisions of the agreement. And the meeting materials also included a red line copy of the contract and financial analysis as well as some comparables. The subcommittee reviewed the contract at a special meeting on May the 5th, and we voted to recommend to the full MARB approval of the contract. The city labor attorney, I believe, is with us today, and as well as the city, if somebody would like to mention the highlights of this contract for the MARB.
Is Beth on?
I don't know.
She thinks the labor attorney's on.
Yeah, believe it.
Is the labor attorney on, Kim? Hello?
Frank, are you with us?
Kim, can you hear me?
This is Beth Baker. You are no longer muted. Now, if Bill Ryan will be on the phone call, but I can give you the highlights of the tentative agreement.
Thank you, Beth.
Article 4, which is union security, would replace Article 23 on the deduction of dues. Article 9, Section 1 would read, if the city can prove that an employee out on sick leave does not have a bona fide illness, that the employee shall forfeit his sick pay and shall be subject to disciplinary action to and including termination of employment. Section 7, the employees hired on or after the ratification and approval of this agreement that expires on June 30th, 2024, shall not be entitled to payment of accumulated sick leave upon retirement. Article 26, under retirement, employees hired or on or after ratification and approval of this agreement that expired June 30th, 2024, shall not be entitled to retiree medical coverage. Article 34 under wages. 2017 to 18 is 0%. 2018 to 19, 0%. 2019 to 2020 is a 0%. 2020 to 21 is a 0%. 2021 to 22 is 1%. 2022 to 23 is 2%. And 2023 to 24 is a 2%, with commencing on June 30th, 2023, all hourly wages and all steps shall increase by 25 cents per hour. Article 21, under insurance, effective January 1st, 2020, which we've already done, the city implemented the Connecticut Partnership Healthcare Plan. Their cost share under insurance on 2021, 2020 to 21 is 13%. 2021 to 22 would go up to 14%. 22 to 23 would be 15%. 23 to 24 is 16%. Under Section 4, under life insurance, the life insurance would increase to $60,000 for each employee. Presently, it is $55,000.
20 minutes or something.
Article 42.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hi,
can.
it's Phil Ryan. I was on the call, but for some reason, no one could hear me, so I dialed back in. But, so I apologize for that. But that is pretty much through the highlights of the tentative agreement. I believe she was just going through the life insurance increasing by $5,000 for each employee, and the last clause mirrors the provision that's in the Public Works Department that was put in there and approved by MARB when the 681 contract was approved.
Let me know what you want to do.
Thank you. Is that it for the updates?
Yes, with the highlights.
Perfect. Do we have any questions regarding the contract?
Just to be consistent to the other village.
You are right, Sal.
Because of that, I'd like to say,
Shall we move forward with a motion to approve the contract?
well,
Well, we can't hear him. We're having some technical difficulties here. Sorry, Sal.
so moved.
So Sal said the motion. Sal took the motion.
Mark started.
Thank you, Mark.
So
Any further discussion?
yeah.
This is Tom Hamilton. I have a
Hi, Tom.
question I think you had a second on that. I'm not sure who seconded it, but I assume.
We did. It was Mark. Thank you.
So I had a question on Article 42, rest periods. This is not a provision I've regularly seen in labor contracts that I'm familiar with. Is this a new provision, or is this an existing provision? And I don't know whether Frank or anyone has any data on how often this occurs. This is a provision that says an employee who works for 16, who's scheduled for 40 hours, but if they work for 16 consecutive hours, so in other words, if they do 2 shifts consecutively, then they're given 1 day off with pay. So it's an additional paid day off, essentially, if they're working for 2 consecutive shifts. So I'm wondering how frequently that occurs, and whether or not this is a new provision or existing provision.
So this is Phil Ryan. This was a provision that was included in, like I said before, the 681 Public Works contract. My understanding is it does not happen often at all, but I will ask Beth Sabo to weigh in on this, as she was the past director of Public Works. Beth?
Yes, it doesn't happen that often. It's usually during a severe snowstorm or during a FEMA event. We've had some in the past. such as Sandy and Irene. We've had some significant snowstorms. When we do have a snowstorm of any significance, most drivers are on for at least 16 hours. We do not have enough drivers for shifts, and I don't, it does not happen that often. The day off is at discretion of the Commissioner of Public Works. It mirrors, and this is a new the article, it mirrors that what was approved also in the 681 contract for the drivers. So this would pertain to only 3 supervisors. There are only 3 supervisors within the Public Works Department that work 40 hours.
And are these employees paid time and a half after 40 hours or after 8 hours in a day or some other standard?
No, they're paid time and a half after 40 hours.
After 40 hours, so time and a half doesn't kick in until they hit the 40 hours. In other words, they don't get time and a half after 8 hours in a day.
No, it's after 40 hours.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Julian, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Waxenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Luciano?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno?
Yeah.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
And Ms. Kennison?
Yes.
Also David Miller here again.
Hey, David.
Thank you, David.
It's late, sorry.
Yeah, that's a, he may join us, because I could do something. Because he thinks
Any other board members that have joined then?
it's the last. So,
All right. The motion is to approve, and it has been approved for that, for the labor contract. Thank you.
Oh, I thought she was popping
Moving on
pills.
to
yeah, that's what I do.
the next item on the agenda is the review and discussion of and possible action of the fiscal year 22 recommended budget for the city of West Haven. And the city has submitted their budget, was recommended for 22 on March the 19th. And the budget was reviewed by the subcommittee at several meetings and by the full MARB on April the 8th. Feedback from the MARB was consistent with 2 preliminary recommendations to prepare a mitigation plan related to the $1.575 million of one-time revenue money that is included in the budget, and to adjust the Allentown Fire Department budget to increase the contributions for their pension and their OPEB. The city has provided a mitigation plan for the $1.575 million in the April 29th memo, which was included a number of the requested supplemental materials that we have requested. The Allentown Fire Department also has been adjusted for the additional $350,000 contribution to the pension plan, which is above and beyond the ADA, and $50,000 to begin the pre-funding of OPEB. The mill rate was also adjusted to accommodate those additional contributions. So Allentown went from a 10.91 mills in their original recommended budget to an 11.62 adjusted mill rate. The city's 5-year plan is still under review process and will take it up again at the subcommittee on May 25th. but the current draft of the 5-year plan is included in the meeting materials just for content, so, for this budget discussion. At the special meeting on May the 5th, the subcommittee voted 3 in favor and 1 abstained, and to recommend the approval of the FY22 budget to the full MARB. Since then, West Haven has taken action to approve the FY22 budget. The council's action included the adjustments of the Allentown and included the adjustment of the Allentown fire fund. The council made some minor changes to the budget that is outlined in attached materials, and the council changes had no impact on the mill rate or the fund balance projection. Julian, any other updates that you would like to, that I might have missed or you would like to include?
No, I think that brings everybody up to date. As you mentioned, the full MARB had one presentation on the full budget at the April meeting, and you outlined what's happened since then.
Thank you. So, any questions for those members that aren't up to date, or if you would like to get a highlight from the city, we can do that.
Regarding Allentown,
Yeah, Mark.
refresh my memory, regarding their health, benefits. I noticed that somewhere in here it stated that the majority of their increase is health insurance. What kind of a health insurance plan do they have? And do they still have retirees eligible for retiree health
Yeah,
insurance?
because
Yes, hi, this is Frank Shaplinsky. Mr. Ratzenberg, they are currently in the high deductible plan, but we are still hopeful that they will move into the state partnership plan.
What about the retirees?
Retirees are still under the normal self-insured plan that the city had.
Frank, what is the, sorry, Mark.
So there's been no grandfathering of retirees regarding health care.
grandfathering?
No, the retirees still have the same healthcare coverage that they've had in the past.
Frank, what is the plan do you have a plan of, anticipated plan for moving from the high deductible?
You take the active, I'll take the retirees.
Yeah, that's good.
Michael Mylon will talk about how we hope to alter the retiree situation. As you know, the city did try to present a plan to MARB that would have had the firefighters go into the partnership plan. That was rejected. So we will be talking with the firefighters, and we'll see what we can come up with. But right now, I couldn't give you an anticipated date as to when that would occur. It does seem like the partnership is an advantage. Maybe we can add additional issues that we want to resolve and try to bring something up again.
Hi,
That sounds good.
this is Michael Mylone.
Yes.
And regarding the retirees, and these aren't the Medicare retirees, these are the pre and post 65 retirees who are on the Anthem self-funded plan. We have repeatedly analyzed the cost of moving that group to the partnership plan. And again this year, the cost was rather prohibitive. So while we're paying a significant amount of money to keep them in a self-insured plan, to move them to the state plan would probably cost us another 10%. So each and every year we go back, revisit this, but it's just not financially in the city's interest. So they have stayed where they've been. and so have the Board of Ed retirees as well. So the only people that are in the partnership plan now are all active city and Board of Education employees, with the exception again of the Allentown actives, who were amenable to going into the plan, but unfortunately the contract got rejected, as the attorney said.
The other thing, again, Attorney Lee.
I recall that it was an early contract.
Yeah. The other thing, Attorney Lee, Ms. Kennison, on an individual basis, when we have the opportunities, we should try to negotiate changes that are favorable to both the city and the retiree. Things like Medicare, F plans, so on and so forth, that require give and take on both sides. So we have, on an individual basis, been able to make some changes that are favorable to both sides, and we will continue to do that as well on the retiree side.
And just for clarification, the healthcare costs that are built into the Allentown budget were provided by Locked-In, so they are the projected numbers from the insurance carrier.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions? If we have no other questions, shall we take a motion to approve the city's FY22 budget contingent upon MARB approval of the 5-year plan? Can I get a motion? So moved. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear whose voice that was on the second. I'm sorry. I don't do that on purpose. Show me your face and I'll see your nice smile and then I know. Maybe that's why. I apologize for that. Any further discussion? No further discussion? Okay. Julie, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Waxenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Luciano?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno?
Yes.
Mr. Brockman?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
And Ms. Kennison?
Yes.
Does she vote?
Is there anybody I missed? That's everyone, thank you.
The chair can override the vote.
That
The chair
approves
can actually
the
vote.
FY22 budget for the city of West
I
Haven.
know.
Thank you.
The chair.
Next item on the agenda is the
That is
monthly
not
financial.
override any vote they make.
Frank, can
It's
you
just
walk
odd
us through
that
the
they can
monthly
vote
financial?
and override.
Absolutely. So, the numbers for 9 months are encouraging. We have seen the recovery of the tax revenues that I mentioned last month. We are in preparation for the lien sales. The RFP, I believe, has gone out already. So we are well along that process, so I don't expect to see any misses as far as tax revenues go. We're starting to see some recovery in the permits. As I mentioned last time, we're projecting only a minor deviation to the budget, so it's coming in roughly $98,000 below anticipated budget. And we're also projecting to see a drop to budget for services specifically around the Parks and Recreation. That is still a continuation of the pandemic, programs that needed to be canceled. So we're hopeful that once the state opens up again, we will be able to recover some of those revenues going forward. So you can see on page 3 of the package that was sent to you, that is the year-over-year comparison for the tax collections. We are back in line with the last 2 years and only slightly below the 5-year average. It looks like there were, in 16 and 17 and 18, we had some pretty hefty collections earlier on in the year, and I suspect that at least in one of those years, we did have the lien sale that occurred earlier. From the expenditure side, we are currently at 75% of the budget, 75% of the year-end projection, and that compares with 79% last year, so we're tracking in line. That percentage in and of itself would indicate that, all things being equal, that the expenditure forecast that's here is extremely conservative, since that year-to-date number is below prior year-to-dates. We're seeing some favorability on the Board of Education. You'll notice on page 7 of the package, Matt has provided a new forecast, so the Board of Education is expected to be able to give back to the city $145,000 this year. Including that $145,000, the projection right now is that we will end the year with a surplus just shy of $1 million. A lot of that is we do have the monies that came in to help us with the COVID expenses, and that has been extremely helpful. We are expecting to hit the $1.2 to $1.3 million range when we do finally dust off and finalize all the COVID transfers. So we have begun that process of moving monies out of the departments for overtime and cleaning supplies, etc., that hit the departments itself. We are moving that to a separate line so that we have better visibility into that. For the sewer fund, we are well in line with prior years. I don't expect to see any issues there. We're projecting at this point just shy of $350,000 surplus for that fund. That includes the expenditure of all contingency and capital projects, so as we get closer to the end of the year, I'll be able to understand better where we're actually going to land. Allentown is a similar situation. The revenues and the expenditures are in line. We are projecting at this point a minor deficit, but that is COVID related, so we will be making an entry to either move funds into the Allentown department or to transfer the COVID costs out of Allentown into the account that's being captured for everybody else. So again, very small. Numbers are in line. I don't expect to see any surprises coming from any of the funds at this point. And with that, I'll welcome any questions.
Frank, Bob White, the slight deviation in Allentown because of COVID, but what was the issue?
That is, just as it was with the police department, sir, that because we need to have those positions staffed at all times. When one firefighter was out under quarantine, they had to hire back and pay the overtime to actually cover that shift. So we had the same situation in the police department, obviously not to the same level as the police because it's a much smaller population.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Frank?
Yes.
Question on the COVID revenue versus the COVID expenses. I would have thought the two lines would have been exactly the same for the projection. Is something going to fall into the next year, or? What is the reason for that?
I actually thought they were the same.
No.
1, 2.
Date.
Oh, yeah, we are expecting, at this point, we do expect to overrun the monies that came in from the state, from what we're seeing. We did get very heavily hit with overtime in the police department, roughly $200,000 plus public works. So that's driving the bulk of that cost.
Okay, so your expenditures are higher than the allotted amount that you can actually get in the grant?
That's what we're expecting at this point, yes. But again, I would prefer, for visibility's sake, to keep all those costs together rather than just end them equal to the revenue.
Yeah. Any questions?
On Allentown, I'm looking at the 5-year plan, only for, reference purposes, we'll be discussing it later. From the actual fiscal year 20 to 21, which, you have a significant increase of over $1,700,000, and in the administration of $1,500,000. What's the rationale? Then it drops way down again, or it drops down a little, but it goes from $7 million to $8.7 million for total expenses, predominantly because of the administration going from 4.6 to 6.2. Drops a little, but then picks back up. What's the rationale for?
So the increase from 20 to 21, that is the additional contribution to the pension fund of $650,000.
Yeah.
So that's included in that. The health insurance went from 1.4 million in 20 to 1.6 in 21. That's the forecast at this point. And then, going forward, in 21 as well, there was an additional $250,000 allocated for capital projects. Now, the 650 and the 250 are directly related to the additional motor vehicle revenues that were obtained by Representative DeMassa. Going forward, the contribution is dropped to $400,000 a year, as we are expecting. We built in if I'm correct, I believe we built in a 12 to 15% increase per annum in the healthcare costs for the fire department until they can move into the state plan.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the monthly report? I don't see any, so we will move on to the next agenda, item number 6. Thank you, West Haven, and we will move on to the town parade.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah.